Welcome back. Today we're jumping into 1 Peter chapter 3,
Yeah, this chapter gives some pretty specific guidance about living righteously.
especially in relationships, right?
Yep.
And also when facing, well, suffering. Let's get into it.
Okay, so it starts right in the household, interestingly, with wives.
hmm The advice is about being submissive
Right, but the context is key, isn't it? It's about potentially winning over a non-believing husband.
through behavior, not words, like their purity and reverence.
Exactly. Influence through action, you could say. It's quite a strategy.
And it contrasts that with outward stuff like hairstyles or jewelry. The focus is inward.
Yeah, that gentle and quiet spirit, that's presented as the real, unfading beauty God values.
It even mentions Sarah as an example of that kind of trust and conduct.
It definitely shifts the emphasis from, appearance to character.
Okay, but it doesn't stop there. What about husbands?
Right, it balances it immediately.
Uh-huh.
Husbands are told to be considerate, live with their wives respectfully,
Uses that phrase weaker partner.
which likely refers to maybe social standing or physical aspects back then. But importantly,
Here it is. They're co-heirs of the gracious gift of life.
Mhm.
That puts them on equal spiritual footing.
precisely. And there's a direct consequence mentioned for husbands.
Oh, yeah.
Treat wives with respect so, and this is the kicker, that nothing will hinder your prayers.
Wow. So the marriage health directly impacts their connection with God. That's pretty intense.
It really is. It lifts the everyday relationship right into the spiritual realm.
So from the home, does it broaden out?
It does. Peter then gives instructions for everyone, for all believers.
Your kind of things.
Living in harmony, being sympathetic, loving one another like family, being compassionate, humble, that kind of thing.
Okay, standard good community stuff.
Yeah.
But what about when things go wrong? Like conflict or someone treats you badly?
Yeah, this is where it gets, well, challenging. The instruction is pretty absolute. Don't repay evil with evil.
Or insult with insult?
Right. Instead, you're told to respond with a blessing.
A blessing to someone who just insulted you. Why?
Because the text says you are called to do this specifically so that you might inherit a blessing.
So giving a blessing leads to receiving one. It's like a spiritual principle being laid out.
Sort of, yeah. It then quotes the Psalms to back this up. Loving life, seeing good days,
Depends on controlling your tongue, avoiding deceit, turning from evil, doing good,
and actively seeking peace, pursuing it even.
because God watches over the righteous,
Yeah.
but opposes the wicked. Makes sense.
So living right is linked to a blessed life, but then it pivots slightly.
Suffering.
Exactly. It acknowledges that even if you are doing good, you might still suffer for it.
And if you do suffer for righteousness, you're considered blessed.
That's what it says. And then that powerful line, do not fear what they fear, do not be frightened.
So how do you manage that? Stand firm when you're suffering for doing right.
Well, the foundation given is to set apart Christ as Lord in your hearts, that internal commitment.
Okay, so that internal lordship is the source of your hope.
And you need to be ready to explain that hope to anyone who asks.
But how you explain it matters.
Yeah,
Or
immensely. With gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience
her goal being.
that your good behavior in Christ actually shames those who speak maliciously against you. Your actions become the defense.
It circles back to conduct influencing others, like with the wives earlier.
It does, and Peter adds, if it's God's will, it's better to suffer for doing good than for doing evil, which seems obvious, but
It reinforces the point. And then he brings in the ultimate example.
Christ himself, he suffered, died for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, specifically to lead us to God.
Put to death in body, made alive by the Spirit. That's the core of it.
Then there's that brief, slightly puzzling mention.
About Christ preaching to spirits in prison. From Noah's time.
Yeah, it's a tricky verse historically, but Peter uses it symbolically here. He immediately links the water of the flood.
To baptism saving us now.
Right, not just washing dirt off, but as a pledge, an appeal to God for a clear conscience.
And this salvation comes through Jesus' resurrection.
Exactly. The whole thing points back to Christ. And the chapter wraps up by affirming Christ's victory.
His ascension, sitting at God's right hand.
With angels, authorities, and powers all in submission to him. It ends on a note of ultimate triumph after suffering.
Okay, wow. That chapter covers a lot of ground. From marriage advice to handling insults, suffering, and deep theology.
It really does.
Thinking about all of this, especially the stuff on submission or blessing those who insult you or suffering for good, how does this ancient advice sit with us today? Does it challenge you? resonate.
It definitely gives you pause, doesn't it? It makes you think about our default reaction.
For sure. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you, listening. Given that strong call not to repay evil with evil, but with blessing, what does it actually look like for you to pursue peace and seek blessing, especially when you feel wronged or insulted?
Yeah, that's something worth reflecting on long after this deep dive ends.